This sums it up, this top comment. Now just need to demonstrate that all critically thinking folks have this marker, and then let the AI segregate and isolate them from the rest of the herd.
Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with you. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me.
Psychological signature for the extremist mind uncovered by Cambridge researchers. Starting to round people up now. This article, you'll have to read it yourself. I'll put the link in the description. It's quite amazing because they feel that they've alerted through doing different random tests on cognitive ability and perception based, that these people have been able to isolate the type of individual that is more susceptible to extremism or fundamentalism. Now that is a nice idea, but then you look at the photos here, and the photos alone seem to allude to possibly their way of thinking. You've got on the right hand side what looks like Antifa out on the rampage, and on the left hand side, no idea what country that is. It looks like a foreign country, but also some form of demonstration stroke civil disobedience to a degree. Why aren't they looking at all demographics? Why is it only ultimately one demographic being displayed here? There's been violence, there's been religious upheavals, there's been all types of people that have been out over the past year or so protesting, getting violent, and doing criminal damage and damage to other people as well. So why aren't they being roped into this? That's the first thing. It looks off the bat that they're trying to point and steer this psychological signature to a certain demographic. Might be wrong, you have to make your own mind up here. And it's very ironic that in reality, when it comes to Antifa, people have been screaming from the rooftops that these guys are bad news, they're malicious, they're vindictive, and they don't mind acts of criminality to get their point across. But yet these guys, these researchers, have thrown them under the bus in order to allude to people that this signature is probably more within white people than black people. Same again, I might be wrong, and I'm not up for a defender of a demographic. I'm just being fair and open and honest. If you had a picture of every demographic that has done extremism and fundamentalism and gone way overboard within their political argument, there'd be many photos up there. So why have you just got two screenshots of what seems to be predominantly white people? So that's the first thing. Researchers have mapped an underlying psychological signature for people who are predisposed to holding extreme social, political, or religious attitudes and support violence in the name of ideology. Now, that is a broad brush, but same again, you go back to the stills. You know, you're not telling the whole story with the photos there. So it's like you want to talk about the whole issue, but you only want to show one demographic that is probably creating this civil disobedience. And I'm not a supporter of Antifa by any means, but I've still got to say it. A new study suggests that a particular mix of personality traits and unconscious cognition, the way our brain take in basic information, is a strong predictor for extremist views across a range of beliefs, including nationalism and religious fervour. These mental characteristics include poorer working memory and slower perceptual strategies, the unconscious processing of changing stimuli such as shape and colour, as well as tendencies towards impulsivity and sensation seeking. This combination of cognitive and emotional attributes predicts the endorsement of violence in support of a person's ideological group, according to findings published today in a psychological transactions of the Royal Society B. Now, this goes on and on. Give it a full read and see what you think. No matter what your political sway is at the moment, we all know what extremism and fundamentalism looks like, and we all know where it's come from, which is various demographics, various people, and also at various times. Sometimes it's been a slow and methodical radicalization. Sometimes acts have been done out of spontaneity, literally. In order to appreciate and acknowledge that, I'm not sure whether this study totally acknowledges that. It's almost like they can just pick anyone off the street, give them a few tests, and they can tell you if they are predisposed to being an extremist. And I think that is wrong. And when you go into this article, it doesn't really mention anything other than really conservatism, nationalism, and it mentions Brexit in there. Is this more of a fudging of data or a true research into the cognitive ability and the extremism probability within the individual? Because all demographics are not being taken into consideration here. So if you've got a Brexit, you've also got people that were staunchly here who were on the other side of the fence that were against that. Their extremism towards people who voted Brexit, when people have been ostracised for having a political view. I love this comment. This sums it up, this top comment. Now just need to demonstrate that all critically thinking folks have this marker, and then let the AI segregate and isolate them from the rest of the herd. Because that's what it feels like. It feels like it's a way to justify that saying anyone who chooses to stand up and say the current situation is wrong on so many levels, that, you know, being identified as almost a terrorist. And we did say this quite some time ago. It won't be long before they proclaim that protesters are dissidents. I think we're already there. What they're trying to do here, or what it seems like they're doing, they're trying to get data in order to prove that point, in order to isolate you from that herd. If you are pro-choice, you're an anti-vaxxer. If you want Brexit, you're a racist. If you want to talk about abuse, you're a racist. If it's particularly regarding a certain religion, you are an Islamophobe. So you can see that they want to put these characteristics on anyone who wants to speak up regarding these situations. And that is really the most disingenuous study that you could have, because according to this study then, there'll be a extremist in pretty much every household. It might just be one family member who feels strongly about a certain point. Does that make him an extremist, fundamentalist? Does it? To question makes you fundamental. To have the propensity to want to question, to analyse, does that make you fundamental? What would you say to doing a research on people that will submit to anything, just say yes without question, even though that same authority is flawed in many ways, double standards in many ways? What would you say to a study on working out what is going on in their brain to make them so submissive, to make them not want to question, to make them not want to stand up, even though they know they're getting done over big time? But you just plod on. What can I do? What goes on cognitively with a person like that? Is that just as dangerous as someone who wants to question? Not talk about violence or a propensity of violence. Just because I attend a march, does that heighten my propensity to violence? What about the counter-protests on marches? On the majority, if not all of the marches I've attended, They've been peaceful, but yet the counter-protest has always been malicious, vindictive. Are they more susceptible to violence? Or are we all in the same boat? You decide. Red Pill Phil, love you all, even the pissing haters.
I love you, 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 I love you,
Even the pissing haters.
I love you, 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 I love you.